The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved seats that rose in tiers around the central speaking platform. Today's emergency session had been called for one reason: the humans. Admiral Zethkar stepped onto the platform, his forearms carrying data tablets while his scaled hide reflected the chamber's blue lighting. As military advisor to the Council, he had spent months studying the newest members of their galactic community. What he had found disturbed him deeply. "Honored representatives," Zethkar began, his voice carrying through the chamber's translation systems. "I present to you the most comprehensive analysis ever conducted on a species before their admission to our council. The humans of Terra have been among us for only 6 months, yet already we must address a critical question. Have we allowed a predator into our peaceful community?" Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Altarian delegate leaned forward, her crystalline features catching the light. "Surely you exaggerate, Admiral. The humans seem quite reasonable in our dealings with them." Zethkar activated the chamber's main display. Images of human warfare filled the air above the platform. Ancient battles with swords and shields gave way to gunpowder conflicts, then mechanized warfare, and finally nuclear devastation. "The humans call this their history," Zethkar said. "They have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded civilization. They have weapons that can split atoms and destroy entire cities. They have created diseases specifically designed to kill their own kind. They have orbital platforms capable of bombarding planets from space." The Viridian ambassador, a plant-like being whose leaves rustled with concern, spoke up. "But Admiral, many species have violent pasts. The Krillians themselves were quite aggressive before joining the Council." "The Krillians fought with honor," Zethkar replied sharply. "We battled for territory, for resources, for survival. The humans fight for ideas. They will die by the millions for concepts that exist only in their minds. They call it ideology and freedom and justice. How do you negotiate with beings who value abstract thoughts more than their own lives?" The display changed to show human military technology. Sleek ships bristling with weapons, soldiers in powered armor, massive guns that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds. "Their kinetic weapons alone could devastate any of our worlds," Zethkar continued. "But it is not just their tools of war that concern me. It is their approach to conflict itself. They have a saying, 'All warfare is deception.' They believe in striking without warning, in using their enemy's strengths against them, in fighting dirty if it means victory." Council Leader Theron, an ancient being whose species had founded the galactic community 3,000 years ago, raised a thin hand. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" "The Terra Protocols," Zethkar announced. "Immediate restrictions on human expansion beyond their current system. Mandatory disarmament of their most dangerous weapons. Constant monitoring of their military development. And absolute prohibition on the export of their weapons technology to other species." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others looked uncertain. The human ambassador, a middle-aged woman named Sarah Chun, sat quietly in her designated section, listening but saying nothing. "The humans have shown no aggression toward any council species," the Altarian delegate pointed out. "Their first contact protocols were peaceful. They have requested only standard trade agreements and colonization rights. A predator often appears harmless before it strikes," Zethkar replied. "Consider this. Humans have been in space for less than 200 years, yet they have already developed technology that rivals species who have been spacefaring for millennia. They learn too quickly, adapt too easily. They are dangerous precisely because they seem so reasonable." The display now showed human entertainment media. Movies filled with explosions, video games where players killed thousands of enemies, books about galactic conquest and alien wars. Even their fiction reveals their true nature, Zethkar said. They dream of conquest among the stars. They fantasize about wars with alien species. They create stories where humanity always emerges victorious through superior cunning and firepower. This is not a peaceful species temporarily at war with itself. This is a warrior race dreaming of expansion. Council leader Thurin studied the data carefully. The old being had seen many species rise and fall over the centuries. The patterns were often similar, but something about the humans felt different. They were too calm, too willing to cooperate, too quick to agree to restrictions. Ambassador Chun, Thurin called. You have heard our concerns. How does humanity respond to these proposed restrictions? Sarah Chun stood slowly. She was smaller than most beings in the chamber, unremarkable in appearance by galactic standards. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. Honored Council Leader, we understand your concerns about our past. We do not deny the violence in our history. We accept that trust must be earned, not demanded. If the Council believes these restrictions are necessary for galactic peace, then humanity will comply. The chamber fell silent. Many had expected arguments, demands for equal treatment, or at least some negotiation. Instead, the humans simply agreed. We will dismantle the weapons you find threatening, Chun continued. We will accept limits on our expansion. We ask only that we be judged by our actions going forward, not by our past mistakes. Zethkar felt uneasy. This was too easy, too smooth. In his experience, truly dangerous species fought restrictions or tried to bargain. They did not simply accept limitations on their power. Very well, Tharn announced after consulting with the other senior council members. The Terra Protocols are hereby enacted. Humanity will have 60 standard days to comply with all restrictions. This session is adjourned. As the delegates filed out, Zethkar watched Ambassador Chun gather her materials. She moved with the same calm efficiency she had shown throughout the session. No anger, no disappointment, no sign of the frustration he would have expected from a restricted species. For a moment, their eyes met across the chamber. Chun nodded politely, then left without a word. Zethkar remained behind, staring at the now empty human section. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The humans had agreed too quickly, too completely. In all his years of military service, he had learned one universal truth. When an enemy surrenders without a fight, they are usually planning something worse. 3 years had passed since the Terra Protocols went into effect, and the Galactic Council had every reason to feel satisfied with their decision. The humans had complied with every restriction, dismantling their most dangerous weapons and accepting severe limits on their expansion beyond the Sol system. They had been model citizens of the galactic community, quiet, cooperative, and seemingly grateful for their inclusion. Admiral Zethkar reviewed the monitoring reports from human space with growing confusion. The orbital weapon platforms had been decommissioned exactly as ordered. The nuclear arsenals had been reduced to minimal defensive levels. Human military ships now carried only basic armament suitable for patrol duties and asteroid mining protection. By every measurable standard, the Terra Protocols had been a complete success. So why did he still feel uneasy? The answer came in the form of an emergency transmission from the border regions. Commander Vexter of the Hegemony of Vorth had launched what he called expansion operations into formerly neutral space. 3 human colonies in the Outer Rim had been attacked without warning. Zethkar studied the battle reports with professional interest. The Vorth were known for their aggressive tactics, but they had always been careful to avoid conflict with Council-protected species. The fact that they were now attacking human settlements could only mean one thing. They believed the humans were too weak to fight back. They were probably right. The Terra Protocols had effectively neutered human military capability. The colonies had only basic defensive systems, nothing that could stand against a full Vorth assault fleet. The emergency council session convened within hours of the first attack reports. The chamber that had once buzzed with concern about human weapons now filled with debates about Vorth aggression. But the underlying question remained the same: what to do about a species that refused to follow galactic norms? The Vorth have committed acts of unprovoked aggression against a council member species, announced Council Leader Theron. This cannot be tolerated. With respect, honored leader, interrupted Delegate Crixvin of the Vorth hegemony, we are simply claiming vacant territory. The humans in these regions are squatters with no legitimate claim to the space they occupy. Ambassador Chun sat in her section, listening to the debate with the same quiet attention she had shown 3 years earlier. The reports from the attacked colonies made for grim reading. Thousands of humans dead or enslaved. Entire settlements burned to the ground. Families separated and shipped off to Vorth labor camps. The colonies were established with proper council documentation, Chun said when recognized to speak. Our people have lived there for over a decade. They are farmers, teachers, engineers. They pose no threat to anyone. Humans are always a threat, Crixvin replied with a dismissive gesture of his clawed hands. The council was wise to restrict them, but restrictions are meaningless if they are allowed to spread across the galaxy like a plague. Zethkar found himself in an unexpected position. For years he had argued that humans were dangerous, that they needed to be contained and controlled. Now, he was watching that very containment being used as justification for genocide. The hegemony will withdraw from all human settlements immediately, Taren declared. This is not a request, it is a direct order from this council. Crixvin's laugh was like the sound of grinding metal. The Vorth respects strength, honored leader. The humans have no strength. Their weapons are gone, their fleets are reduced to cargo haulers, and their military exists only on paper. Why should we fear council disapproval when the species you claim to protect cannot even protect themselves? The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded military action against the Vorth. Others pointed out that the council had never used force to resolve disputes before, preferring diplomacy and economic sanctions. A few quietly suggested that perhaps the humans deserved their fate for being too weak to defend their own territory. Ambassador Chun requested permission to speak again. When the chamber quieted, her voice remained as calm as ever. Honored Council, we understand the difficult position this puts you in. We agreed to the Terra Protocols because we believed in the Council's ability to maintain galactic peace. We trusted that our compliance would be rewarded with protection under Council law. The Council will resolve this situation through proper diplomatic channels, Tharan assured her. The Vorth will be made to understand that their actions are acceptable. How long will that take? Chun asked. How many more of my people will die while diplomats debate? The process takes as long as it takes, snapped Delegate Morthic of the Centauri Alliance. The humans agreed to disarmament. They cannot now complain when that disarmament leaves them vulnerable. Perhaps this will teach them the value of the Council's protection. Chun nodded slowly. I see. Then humanity requests permission to withdraw from the Terra Protocols temporarily, just long enough to defend our colonies from Vorth aggression. The chamber fell silent. For 3 years, the humans had been the perfect example of a successfully restricted species. They had followed every rule, accepted every limitation, and caused no trouble for anyone. Now, they were asking to break their restrictions for the first time. Absolutely not, Zethkar said, surprising himself with the quickness of his response. The protocols exist for the safety of all Council species. They cannot be suspended simply because compliance has become inconvenient. Then, what do you suggest we do, Admiral? Chun asked. Stand by, and watch our people be slaughtered because we kept our word to you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Every delegate in the chamber knew the answer, but none wanted to say it aloud. The Council's protection was theoretical. Their diplomacy was slow. Their enforcement was non-existent when faced with a truly aggressive species like the Vorth. The Council will increase diplomatic pressure, Tharan finally announced. Economic sanctions will be considered. The situation will be resolved through proper channels. Chen gathered her materials with the same efficient movements she had shown 3 years earlier. But this time, Zethkar noticed something different in her posture. The polite deference was still there, but underneath it lay something harder. I understand, Chen said. Humanity will continue to honor the Terra protocols. We will not defend ourselves with the weapons you fear. We will trust in Council protection and await your diplomatic solution. As she left the chamber, Zethkar felt that same uneasiness return. The human ambassador had agreed again, just as she had 3 years ago. But something in her tone suggested that compliance and surrender were not the same thing. The Admiral spent the rest of the day reviewing intelligence reports from human space. The Vorth attacks were escalating. More colonies were under siege. Human casualties were mounting by the hour. And through it all, the humans maintained their restrictions, never once using the weapons they had been forbidden to deploy. They were keeping their word exactly as they had promised. So why did Zethkar feel like he was watching the setup for something much larger and more dangerous than a simple border conflict? The Vorth attacks had been escalating for 6 months, and the Council's diplomatic efforts had achieved nothing more than strongly worded statements and economic sanctions that the hegemony simply ignored. Commander Vexter seemed to take the Council's inaction as permission to expand his operations. What had started as raids on border colonies had grown into a systematic campaign to claim all human settlements. Beyond the Sol system, Admiral Zethkar studied the latest casualty reports with growing discomfort. 15 human colonies destroyed. Nearly 1 million civilians dead, enslaved, or missing. The humans had not fired a single shot in retaliation, maintaining their compliance with the Terra protocols, even as their people died. But something else was happening in human space. Something that made no sense from a military perspective. Cultural exchanges. Zethkar muttered, reading the intelligence summary for the 3rd time. What in the void are cultural exchanges? His aide, a young Krillian officer named Dekmar, pulled up additional data on the chamber's display. According to our sources, the humans have initiated contact with over 40 different species in the past 6 months. They're offering what they call friendship programs. The display showed shipping manifests, communication logs, and diplomatic reports. Humans were sending teachers to Altarian crystal gardens. They were sharing medical technology with the plague-ravaged Epsilon colonies. They were building communications networks for isolated systems that the Council had never bothered to contact. This makes no military sense, Zethkar said. Their colonies are under attack. Their people are dying. And instead of building weapons, they're building what? Schools. Agricultural centers mostly, Dekmar replied. Also hospitals, communication relays, and something they call friendship stations. Small orbital platforms that seem to serve no military purpose whatsoever. Zethkar felt his scales itch with frustration. In his decades of military service, he had learned to read the patterns of war. Species under attack either fought back or sought stronger allies for protection. They did not waste resources on charity work with minor civilizations. The Admiral decided to see for himself what the humans were doing. His personal ship, a fast scout vessel with advanced sensors, could reach the border regions within a few days. If the humans were planning something, he needed to know what it was. The first stop was Kepler Station, a human outpost that supposedly served as a cultural exchange center with the nearby Zephyrian colonies. Zethkar's ship approached under diplomatic immunity, broadcasting council identification codes. What he found defied all logic. Kepler Station was indeed under construction, but not as a military facility. The humans were building what appeared to be a massive educational complex, complete with research laboratories, cultural centers, and residential areas designed to accommodate dozens of different species. Zephyrian vessels docked alongside human ships, their crews working together on projects that seemed to have nothing to do with the war. Request permission to speak with the station commander, Zethkar ordered. The response came from a human woman who looked exhausted but determined. "Admiral, I'm Director Sarah Okafor. Welcome to Kepler Station. I understand you're here on a council inspection? Explain to me what you are doing here, Director. Your species is under attack. Why are you building schools instead of defense platforms?" Okafor's smile was tired but genuine. "Because schools last longer than defense platforms, Admiral. The Vorth can destroy our weapons, but they can't destroy what we teach. Would you like a tour?" Against his better judgment, Zethkar agreed to transport down to the station. What he saw there challenged everything he thought he knew about human nature. The humans were indeed building schools, but they were also sharing technology. Advanced medical equipment helped Zephyrian children recover from genetic diseases. Human agricultural techniques were turning barren Zephyrian worlds into garden planets. Communication networks connected isolated Zephyrian outposts to the broader galactic community for the first time. "We're not giving them weapons," Okafor explained as they walked through a research lab where human and Zephyrian scientists worked side by side. "We're giving them hope. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians can communicate instantly across their entire civilization. Their mortality rates have dropped by 60%. Their food production has increased by 400%. But what does this gain you?" Zethkar demanded. "Your colonies are burning while you play teacher to primitives." Okafor stopped walking and faced him directly. "Admiral, with respect, you're thinking like a soldier. You see immediate threats and immediate responses. We're thinking like a species that wants to survive for the next 1,000 years." Over the following days, Zethkar visited more human facilities. Everywhere he went, the pattern was the same. Humans sharing knowledge, building infrastructure, solving problems that had plagued smaller species for generations. They were making friends with civilizations that the Council had barely noticed. The Vothanari had been struggling with quantum communication for decades, until human engineers showed them a simpler approach. The crystalline Jurhek had never been able to grow food, until human biologists developed plants that could thrive in silicon-based soil. The nomadic Tessara had been trapped in their home system until humans built them a mobile space station. "This is unprecedented," Zethmar reported when Zethkar returned to his ship. "According to our databases, most of these species have never had formal contact with the Council. The humans are establishing relationships with civilizations we didn't even know existed." Zethkar stared at the tactical display showing human space. Red markers indicated Vorth-controlled systems. Blue markers showed remaining human colonies. But scattered throughout the region, dozens of green markers represented these new human partnerships. "They're not building an army," he realized. "They're building a network." The pattern became clearer when Zethkar reviewed communication intercepts from the past month. The humans weren't just sharing technology with their new friends. They were connecting them to each other. Species that had never known of each other's existence were now trading resources, sharing knowledge, and coordinating development projects. The Altarians were teaching crystal cultivation to the Jurhek. The Zephyrians were sharing their navigation techniques with the Tisra nomads. The Vothanari were helping dozens of species upgrade their communication systems. Centered in the middle of all these new relationships were the humans, facilitating every connection and asking for nothing in return except friendship. How many species are involved in these exchanges? Zethkar asked. 47 confirmed, Dekmar replied. But the number grows every week. The humans seem to be contacting every civilization within a 50 light-year radius of their territory. Zethkar felt his uneasiness crystallize into true alarm. For months, he had watched the humans allow their people to die rather than break their word to the Council. He had assumed they were simply weak, too civilized to fight back against Vorth aggression. Now he understood the truth. The humans weren't weak at all. They were patient in a way that no military mind could comprehend. While the Council debated and the Vorth conquered, the humans have been planting seeds of loyalty across dozens of worlds. Sir, Vekmar said quietly, there's something else. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual ship movements throughout the region. Multiple species seem to be mobilizing their fleets. Zethkar's blood ran cold. Mobilizing for what? Unknown, sir. But all the movement is heading toward the Sol system. The Admiral stared at the tactical display as the true scope of human strategy became clear. They hadn't been building weapons because they hadn't needed to. They had been building something far more dangerous than any arsenal the Council had feared. They had been building hope. And hope, as Zethkar was about to learn, was the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The alarms began wailing throughout Vorth command ships as Commander Vexther prepared for his greatest victory. His assault fleet, 300 strong, approached the Sol system with confidence. Earth itself lay before them, protected only by the handful of patrol ships that the Terra protocols permitted humanity to maintain. The humans have no weapons that can threaten us, Vexter announced to his bridge crew. Their orbital defenses were dismantled years ago. Their fleets are reduced to cargo haulers and mining vessels. Today, we claim the human homeworld and prove to the galaxy that Council protection is meaningless. The first wave of Vorth ships crossed into the outer solar system. Past the orbit of Pluto, sensors showed exactly what intelligence had predicted. A few dozen human vessels, clearly outmatched, falling back toward the inner system. It would be a slaughter, just as the other human colonies had been. Then space began to fill with light. Hyperspace. Windows tore open throughout the system. One ship emerged, then 10, then hundreds. Within minutes, over 2,000 vessels of designs Vexther had never seen filled the space between his fleet and Earth. The tactical display showed ship configurations from dozens of different species, all broadcasting the same message in perfect unison. Vorth fleet, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. Earth is under our protection. Vexther stared at the display in disbelief. Altarian crystal ships gleamed alongside Zephyrian pursuit craft. Massive Tessara mobile platforms drifted next to sleek Vothanari communication vessels. Species he had never heard of flew in formation with civilizations he had dismissed as primitives. How is this possible? He demanded. Where did all these ships come from? His intelligence officer, a scarred veteran of dozens of conquest campaigns, worked frantically at his console. Sir, I'm detecting ships from over 40 different species. Most of them aren't even council members. According to our databases, some of these civilizations shouldn't even have space travel capability. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions had been called as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Admiral Zethkar watched the tactical feeds with a mixture of awe and terror. The largest volunteer fleet in galactic history had assembled itself in mere hours, all converging on Earth to defend a species that most of the galaxy barely knew. How did we miss this? Darren demanded. How did an alliance of this size form without our knowledge? Because it wasn't an alliance, Ambassador Chen said as she entered the chamber. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't alone. Behind her walked representatives from dozens of species, many wearing clothing and technology that showed clear human influence. Honored Council Leader, Chen continued, I would like you to meet some of humanity's friends. The Zephyrian delegate stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns glowing with excitement. The humans saved our children from the gene plague. When we learned Earth was under attack, our entire fleet volunteered for defense duty. A crystalline Altarian added, human agricultural techniques have tripled our food production. We owe them a debt that cannot be repaid with mere words. One by one, the representatives told similar stories. Humans sharing medical technology that had saved millions of lives. Human engineers solving infrastructure problems that had crippled entire civilizations. Human teachers bringing education to worlds that had never known literacy. We come not because of treaties or obligations, announced the elderly Vothanari admiral whose people had been transformed by human communication technology. We come because when our children are sick, humans send doctors. When our worlds are hungry, humans send food. When we are alone in the darkness, humans bring light. Back in the Sol system, Vexter found himself facing an impossible decision. His 300 ships were outnumbered 7-1 by a coalition that shouldn't exist. Worse, many of the vessels arrayed against him carried weapons technology he didn't recognize, hybrid designs that combined the best features of multiple species engineering. Sir, his weapons officer reported nervously, I'm reading power signatures that don't match our intelligence reports. These ships have been significantly upgraded. Vexter activated the communication array. This is Commander Vexter of the Hegemony of Orth. We claim this system by right of conquest. Stand aside or be destroyed. The response came not from the humans, but from Admiral Kethara of the Altarian Defense Force. This is a free coalition of species defending our friends. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal. After that, we will consider you hostile and respond accordingly. You cannot threaten the hegemony, Vexter snarled. We have conquered dozens of species. We have fleets throughout the galaxy. You think your mining ships and cargo haulers can stand against Vorth warriors? Actually, came a new voice, calm and unmistakably human. We were hoping you would ask about that. On screens throughout Vex there is command ship, and simultaneously in the council chambers appeared the image of Admiral Sarah Martinez, formerly of the disbanded Earth Defense Force. She wore a uniform that combined elements from dozens of different military traditions. Commander Vexter, I am Admiral Martinez of the Coalition Defense Force. The ships you see around you represent 3 years of cooperation, shared technology, and mutual aid between 47 different species. We have combined the best defensive technologies in the galaxy, and we have been preparing for this moment since the day you first attacked a human colony. Martinez gestured, and the tactical display showed the true scope of what the humans had built. Not weapons of war, but weapons of friendship. Medical stations that had saved billions of lives. Agricultural centers that had ended famines on dozens of worlds. Communication networks that had connected isolated civilizations for the first time in their history. Every species you see here volunteered their ships and crews, Martinez continued. Not because we threatened them, not because we bought them, but because we helped them when they needed help. We listened when they spoke. We shared what we had and asked for nothing but friendship in return. In the council chambers, Admiral Zefkar finally understood what he had been watching for 3 years. The humans hadn't been weakened by the Terra protocols. They had been freed from the burden of defending themselves, allowing them to focus entirely on helping others. You dismantled our weapons, Ambassador Chen said, addressing the council directly. You restricted our military. You feared our capacity for violence. but you never understood what made humans truly dangerous. The display showed the volunteer fleet surrounding Vexthor's forces. Ships from species that had spent centuries in isolation now flew together in perfect formation. Civilizations that had struggled alone for millennia had found their voices through human communication networks. "We are dangerous because we make friends," Chung continued. "We are dangerous because when we help someone, we do not count the cost. We are dangerous because we believe that every species, no matter how small or how isolated, deserves a chance to reach for the stars." Vexthor's fleet began to withdraw, not because they were beaten in battle, but because they were outnumbered by an alliance built on trust rather than fear. As the Vorth ships retreated, Admiral Martinez broadcasted a final message to both the fleet and the Council. "The Terra Protocols taught us that the galaxy fears human weapons. Today, we hope you have learned to respect human patience. We spent 3 years planting seeds of friendship while others harvested conflict. Now you see what grows from seeds of hope." The emergency council session ended with the chambers in chaos. Everything they thought they knew about power, about control, about the nature of galactic civilization had been turned upside down. The humans had not broken a single restriction placed upon them. Yet they had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. Admiral Zethkar remained in his seat long after the other delegates had left, staring at the tactical display that still showed the massive coalition fleet protecting Earth. He had feared human weapons and been proven right about their danger. But he had never imagined that the most powerful weapon in their arsenal would be their willingness to help strangers become friends. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, Zethkar thought as he finally rose to leave, that was exactly what it had needed all along.